The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host and or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of the host and or Paranormal Buzz Radio and or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is prohibited. Paranormal Buzz Radio will not be held responsible for you holding your knees, crying, and rocking in a corner in a puddle of your own urine, or being beheaded by a group of children in a cornfield. In fact, if you come across a group of children in a cornfield, we promise to make fun of you as you run away screaming in terror. Listener discretion is advised. Caution. You are now entering the all-consuming realm of Shay's Paranormal Chat, where the things that are better left unsaid are actually said.
Shut up and sit down.
You're listening to Shay's Paranormal Chat. Paranormal podcasting done Shay's way. Tons of fun.
Dude, seriously?
A bit sarcastic.
Hashtag investigator, not hunter.
But always real.
Hashtag data, not evidence.
Don't get your panties in a twist.
Oh my god, really?
This is real, raw conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Good evening, everybody. TGIF, thank you for joining us tonight. And I'm so happy. I have my beautiful, my majestical Kelly McCarville back
Majestical.
tonight.
Majestical. That's a new word.
I try to throw in new adjectives every once in a while.
Isn't it magically delicious? Is that not where we're going?
That's where that came from. Yes.
Yeah.
If anybody does not know the story, I had a dream about her. The Lucky Charms.
Yeah, that's as far as that needs to go.
Yeah. But she was magically delicious. We'll just leave it there.
Oh God, the rumors that are going to start now.
Like they haven't already.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Our secret long distance love affair.
Yes. Hey, I can't imagine having one with anybody else but you. So
that's right.
That is right. I'm very excited tonight. We're talking about fairies and Irish folklore. So I want to just jump right in and introduce our guest. I'm going to probably butcher her name, but tonight we have Morgan Daimler.
Daimler.
How close am I?
Yeah, Daimler. Morgan Daimler.
Yeah, see? For me, that wasn't bad. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
Yes,
Looking
finally.
forward to talking with y'all.
Yes.
We're excited because we were talking before the show started. Neither one of us knows a ton about this, so we're excited to learn right along with everybody listening tonight.
Yes. Which is why I started podcasting, was to learn, so.
That's a great reason.
You think we'd be further along than we are then, wouldn't you?
Anybody that knows me knows it takes me a while to learn anything, so.
There's a lot out there to learn, so.
There is. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I mean, that's such a broad question.
Anything, everything?
Well, I'm an author. I've got 35 books out at the moment. I have another one coming out.
Crap.
Lord, woman.
I didn't know it was that many.
I was not expecting that reaction. Most of them are fairly short, so that's part of why it's so many. But I've been a full-time stay-at-home writer for about 10 years now. I like to keep myself busy, so always got something going on. And otherwise everything else is pretty boring. Well,
hey, I'm the queen of boring, let me tell you. Welcome to my life. That's, I knew you had many books, but I did not know it was 35.
Yep. I have a 9-book urban fantasy paranormal romance series for fiction, and then everything else, the other 26, those are all nonfiction.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I do the fiction for fun.
Hey, I don't blame you.
Yeah. Everyone's got to have fun somewhere.
Somewhere, somehow.
Yep.
Yeah. Besides that, typical boring 2 cats, 3 kids.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh,
that sounds boring. Doesn't keep you busy at all, I'm sure.
Yeah. No. That's just, you know, you can just sleep all day with that many kids and cats. That's it.
Well, she can't sleep all day. Got to work around her pedicures and her bonbon.
I feel like you've been talking to my family.
Right? Amen. I hear you there.
I was actually joking on social media last week that I think the majority of people, when you tell them that you're a writer, like an author professionally, that's their image of your life. That you just sort of hang around and eat bonbons and relax.
Yeah, and have the men carry around on that thing and eat great.
That would be nice. Mine hasn't arrived yet. It's on order. So
I'm not holding my breath.
All of it.
Yeah.
You bought it as a set. Way to save money.
Well, you got to be frugal.
Yeah, you do, right? See?
Yeah.
See, I knew you'd fit right in here. I did.
Awesome.
Oh, we have our first question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It's Mama Pat, so before we get into the nonfiction, Mama Pat wants to know, what are some of the topics of your nonfiction books?
My nonfiction? Sure.
I said that backwards, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I was following you. I have 4 books that are translations. I like to describe it as my super exciting, boring hobby. I translate material from Old and Middle Irish into English. So original Irish mythology, basically. And I have 3 those are pocket books, so they're fairly small.
Cool.
And then I have, I'm not going to remember the exact number, a couple that are just on fairies, specifically. And then a series that are about different Irish deities. Well-known ones like the Morrigan and Bridget, and possibly less well-known ones like the Dagda and Manon and MacLear. So those are always super fun to write.
That's very cool.
So how'd you get into all of this?
It's kind of one of those long stories, but the shortest version is basically that it was kind of always an interest from when I was really young. I grew up in the Irish American diaspora, which is its own kind of wacky thing. A lot of the
tradition. Yeah. What is that?
It's basically first and second and third generation people whose ancestors, I don't want to say ancestors, that makes it sound weird, like parents, grandparents, great-grandparents came from Ireland. Okay. So there's communities in various places, but you kind of grow up with a lot of the traditions and beliefs and culture, but with an American kind of twist on it, because obviously it's over here.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, that's where my interest in the Irish specifically comes from. From my grandfather, my father's side of things. And, then when I hit my teens, I was one of those people that really wanted to know where things come from. If we have this folklore, if we have these beliefs, if we have this idea of fairies, where does that come from? What are the beliefs about it? And I just started digging into it. And it's one of those things, once you start, you'll just keep going.
Keep going.
You fall down a rabbit hole.
You really do. There's so much to it, and it's so interesting and complicated, and the more you learn, kind of the less you know. because the more you realize how much is out there.
I think that goes with the paranormal. Because the more, every time I ask a question, one question leads to three more. Like, somebody will answer, and then it's like, well, all right, but what if this? What if that? What if, like, I guess that's why it's a paranormal.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
And it just, every question leads, like you said, to three more questions. And then before you know it, you've spent 20-something years trying to look into it. And
Is that how long you've been doing this?
How long I've actually been doing it? It's probably closer to 25.
You look 25.
Right.
You are my new best friend. I love you.
Well, and that's what kind of got me when she's like, "Oh, I've been writing for this many years, and I got this many books, and I've got kids," and I'm just like, "Aren't you like in your early 20s?"
I thought I misheard her.
I love both of you. No, my oldest child is 17. So,
wow.
Yeah, that mathematically would not work out.
No, you roll with it. So my oldest, we have decided he's no longer my son. He's now my brother because it's awkward that we're so close in age with him being 23 and me being 29. So
yeah.
See, I'm proud to be 29 with my youngest is 19 and a half. That's good for me. I stand by that statement.
It's age is totally a state of mind.
Yeah, then me and Kelly are 12.
Oh, well, and that's giving us credit on some days.
That's a fun age, though.
It is, we're still at that dirty mind stage. Everything sounds dirty and sexual, and we have fun with it. So
and we giggle.
We do.
If you're not having fun, then what's the point?
Thank you. Amen. We already have questions there, and I know Kelly has some, and I have some. But the first step I think we need to take is your definition of a fairy.
Okay. I was going to say, it's going to be fun to see what questions are coming in based on this conversation so far.
The chat people, if I don't act this way, I don't have listeners. They tune in to say, what is she going to say next?
Yeah.
Oh, no, this is super fun.
Oh, see?
So what is a fairy? Basically, and this is sort of my personal definition. It's a definition you'll find if you read like academic material, scholarly material on fairies, or if you read folklore or, get into like folkloric accounts. Basically, a fairy is any being that is not of this world, is from another world. It's referred to as the other world or the world of fairy. But that is in this world or is interacting with this world is like the broadest definition. So kind of despite that sort of popular mainstream idea of fairies as these sort of little like Tinkerbell kind of figures, you can find fairies that are cats, fairies that are dogs, horses, fairies that look very much like humans, fairies that are giants, fairies that are, smaller. It's sort of this whole really wide range. And the only thing that they have sort of consistent to them is that sort of otherworldly nature or quality, inherently magical. But when I say that, I feel like I should have like glitter raining down around me. It's not quite like that, but yeah, I think that's kind of the general definition that we find.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception, because when somebody says fairy, they automatically think Tinkerbell, which has already been mentioned in chat multiple times.
Yep. And that they're all sweetness and light and throw pixie dust on you and it's always friendly. And I've also heard that's not necessary.
No, according to Cynthia, they have the same definition as me and Kelly. They are mischievous and they are naughty.
Oh, I thought you meant they were bitches.
Well, she didn't add that. That's we don't need to tell people that.
Figured it out.
The folklore and the folk belief around them really runs that whole range and even further. You have the ones that are a little more on the helpful end, a little more on the more forgiving, kind of gentle end. You do have the mischievous ones, the ones that are going to play pranks and kind of mess with people. You also have ones that are really dangerous, that'll cause people harm. There's a couple different kinds that you'll find that, humans are on the menu, so to speak. So it's a really wide range.
I have a question, but I can't come up with it. Go ahead, Kelly, because my mind I can't think of the word, so go ahead.
Well, Darren asked a question, and it was one that I was thinking too. So, what is the reasoning behind why fairies interact or act with us? What causes a fairy to come and see you?
That's a really good question. I don't know that we have a clear answer necessarily. When you look at all of the accounts, the modern anecdotal accounts, the older folklore, the mythology, there seems to be some sort of intrinsic connection between humans and these beings. They are really well known in a lot of different cultural folklore for stealing humans, is kind of the nicest way to put it, for taking humans away into their own world, sometimes turning that human into sort of one of their own type of beings, sometimes not. They also have a lot of interest in artists. So there's a lot of accounts of them taking musicians, but they'll bring those back. They kind of borrow them for the entertainment and then return them. So it seems like, why are these beings connected to or interested in humans? Partially because they need us in some way, whether it's to make more fairies, to entertain them, to teach them new things. There's a lot of accounts of them borrowing technology. Stuff
like alien abduction, but fairy abduction.
Yeah, there's actually a whole ongoing debate between the two different communities, the sort of fairy community and then the ufologist community, about whether aliens are extraterrestrial aliens or whether aliens are fairies. Because a lot of the stuff that you see with the modern alien abductions and UFOs is identical to what you would see in the older folklore with fairies.
Like what type of things?
Lights in the trees, them taking people who are taken by the fairies and then do return. There's always a time issue. Either more time has gone by than they thought or less time has gone by. Sometimes physical differences. I'm trying to think of the nicest way to say this. I don't know what rating this podcast.
Oh, honey, anything goes. Okay. We can talk all about the probing. It's perfectly fine.
There we go. So yeah, sometimes there's probing in the fairy accounts. It's just a lot of the things that we would expect with the modern UFO stuff, except of course with the fairies, it was clearly fairies. The people would know that's what was going on. And with the alien encounters, people are seeing and experiencing things that they identify as, extraterrestrials. It's complicated because fairies have a kind of magic called glamour that affects human senses, so they can make you see what they want.
Like vampires.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know way too many little things about way too much TV.
I actually think that the idea of vampires having it probably came from fairies originally, because the fairy lore with glamour goes way back, hundreds and hundreds of years. So, but yes, exactly like that. They mess with your head.
So, will fairies fight amongst themselves then, or? Yep. It's, power struggle wise, or just people they don't get along? People sometimes don't get along, or?
Kind of all of the above. And this is, when we talk about fairies, like I said at the beginning, it's this really broad term. There's all sorts of different specific kinds. And a lot of what we see in folklore is the idea of these sort of different groups in different places. So if you look at the Irish folklore, there's stories about fairies in different areas who clearly had issues with each other and would fight each other at different points. There's a really famous story that's told by Eddie Lenihan, who's a famous storyteller over in Ireland, involving a fairy tree. And part of the story, if I remember correctly, was them finding what they said was white fairy blood on the ground in the morning because the fairies had been fighting. So, yeah, they definitely do not always get along with each other.
And the glamour that you spoke of is kind of like a sense of mesmerizing them, almost like hypnosis type stuff.
That's an aspect of it, yeah. Yeah, they can, there's so many different stories.
Right.
This, but the idea that they could make you think a handful of gingerbread or a handful of leaves was gold coins, or that a sort of spread of acorns and mushrooms and moss and like forest detritus kind of stuff was a feast. And you would smell it, you would see it, you would really think it was there until that magic gets broken. And then you'd realize, oh no, this is like the forest floor.
The forest floor.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, might want to get your stomach pumped a little bit,
So why is it some people are more apt to see fairies and other people can't see them?
That's another one of those super good questions that I don't know there's any particular answer to. There's
what is your thoughts on it? I know there's none of this can be proven by science, just like paranormal and intuitive ability. So we get this. In your opinion,
I always like to put that out first, though, because then one leaves this and says, like Morgan said,
and therefore it is fact. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they can show themselves to whoever they want to. They have that ability that if, no matter who you are, no matter how much of a skeptic you are, no matter how much you don't believe in any of this, if they want you to see them, then you will. But I also think that some humans, for whatever reason, ancestry, random quirk, uniqueness, just have an ability to perceive them. Or, to look at it from the flip side of that glamour doesn't always work on absolutely everybody. Kind of that law of averages.
Sure.
There's always going to be some humans that they're immune to it, I guess we could say. Sure.
All right, I'm going to ask one more question on fairies, and then we have another question that kind of changes topics a little bit. So, okay. I'm going to add to his question. So Darren's question is, what's the best way to catch one? And if you catch one, what would you do with it? And I'm going to preempt that question with, is it a good idea to try to catch one? Because I don't think that sounds like the best idea.
Or why would you want to?
Well, because who doesn't want their own damn Tinkerbell? Come on.
That's a good question, too. I would definitely sort of be on your side with this, Kelly, that it probably is not something you really want to do.
If they were Tinkerbells, then it'd be more fun.
Right.
But they're not Tinkerbells.
If we were talking about, and like I said, there's all these different specific types. If we were talking about a specific type that's on that sort of smaller, less powerful, more forgiving end, cute. Yeah. Then there's probably certain things you could try to do. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because there's a lot of material that we have sort of on the magical practices end with ceremonial magic grimoires, they're called, in the 17th and 18th century that talk about like compelling fairies and things you can do to sort of bend them to your will if you're so inclined. But the kind of issue with that sort of tiger by the tail problem.
Uh-huh.
Like, that's okay as long as you're having the control of it. But you're also dealing with something that's basically immortal and is
magical and
right.
has
right.
power and
right. Magical is not going to appreciate what you're doing. It has a lot of time.
Meaning they're not going to get bored and give up.
No, they're pretty good at holding grudges, I think. So
they must be related to me and Kelly.
I don't hold a grudge. I just don't forget. There's a difference.
True. I don't either. It's same here. I have one question, Kelly, before you switch topics.
Okay.
It took me a long time to think of what the words I was trying to think of. But are fairies along the same lines as like stuff as puckwudgies? Are they that type of?
Yeah, this is one of those hotly debated topics.
Okay.
So I'll just jump right into it, as you do. When we talk about the term fairy specifically, I tend to be the most comfortable using that with like the Western European sort of beings. And I generally use the word fairy-like in other contexts, but we could certainly argue that there are fairy-like beings in the United States and Canada, and throughout the world, quite frankly. I just hesitate to flat out say they're fairies because it's a completely different culture and they have their own terms and understandings. But they would fit that kind of broader.
Is it an
category.
elemental? Is a fairy an elemental type or no?
There are people that will tell you yes. From my own perspective, I would say no, because I tend to see elementals as more strongly linked to one particular element, whether it's earth or fire or water. And fairies are very fluid.
Okay.
Like even the ones that are in the water tend to be able to come out of the water and get into trouble.
But they're also more like little beings, like little big whatever. I mean, not saying they're all one size, but they're actual like pick it up and hold it type thing, where my understanding is an elemental is more of like an energy.
Yes, that would be another.
It's a physical aspect to a fairy, I guess is my point.
Yes, that would be another good point to make. Yes, and I didn't mention that earlier, but it is worth saying since you brought it up, and you're exactly right. Fairies are generally understood to have physicality to them. They can be invisible. They can do things humans can't do, pass through knot holes in boards and get into places that it should be physically impossible to get into, fun stuff like that. But they are generally tangible. There's anecdotal accounts, like even up through today, of people, talking to them, touching them. They pick stuff up, they move stuff around. So they have that physicalness to them that we don't see with other types of spirits.
All I can picture is like Edwin from Twilight. Like he can, all those people, they can like put thoughts in your head and they're beautiful.
That's
and
the glamour. Yeah,
the glamour, yeah.
She's talking about.
Yeah.
That's why I compared it to vampires. So,
See, I wasn't here for that. I didn't hear that. But that Stephanie, she wrote Stephanie, right? Is that her name that wrote Twilight?
Yeah, Stephanie Myers.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I said it, then I was like, crap, is that the right name? See, she mixed a whole bunch of stuff in there.
Yeah. So let's say, sorry, I know I said I'm going to change topic, and I will. Mama Pat, I haven't forgot your question. I'm going to get there.
This is a fun topic, so.
Yeah.
So I know, like, there's things that you can do if you want to communicate with a spirit. Mm-hmm. So are there different things that you can do to kind of, like, call in a fairy or to make yourself more able to see them or sense them?
Yeah. If you wanted to. I mean, for one that's really well known is a 4-leaf clover. If you have a 4-leaf clover or carry it with you, you're supposed to be able to see them. Looking through a holed stone, if you have a stone that has a natural hole through it, that's supposed to allow you to see things that are unseen. So, things like that. If you're with someone who naturally has the ability to see fairies, the folklore says if you kind of like stand on their foot or hold their hand or like physically touching them, that you'll be able to see them too. So I don't know how that one works.
I wasn't laughing at you. It just brought me back to the leprechaun, which brought me back to the Magically Delicious, my dream with Kelly, and I couldn't help but laugh.
I just thought it was funny that the first thing she went through is like, if you stand on their foot, don't like reach out and touch their arm or anything. Step on their foot.
Hey. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a traditional method. So,
Oh, is it?
I'm just passing it along.
So what I can do then is I can walk up to someone I don't like, stomp on their foot, and say, I was simply trying to see the fairy.
Sure.
And they can take that for whatever they want to.
That would definitely be a thing you could do, yes. Yeah, and, inviting them in or trying to be more open to them, again, with sort of that may or may not be the best idea, depending on what exact type we're talking about. Just kind of putting it out there, there's a strong belief in a lot of places, because most humans can't see them, that at any point they could be around you and you won't know.
Right.
So that they will eavesdrop and overhear people talking. So if you just kind of say, hey, I'd be really interested in having more communication with this or connection to this.
And that's kind of why I compared it to ghosts, because it's kind of the same things. People just have a natural ability to see them sometimes, or to sense when they're around. But if you say, hey, I would like to see you, your chances may go up. So
can psychic mediums see more fairies than other people, do you think?
I think some can, yeah.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of different mediums. That sounds a little weird when I said it out loud, but I should clarify. My friend owns a store in the town over that's sort of a cult pagan sort of shop. So I've met a lot of people who are mediums or who are interested in that sort of thing, and there's definitely some, I think, that are more in tune with the fairy end of things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
This medium can't see him, and at the moment she's kind of pouting about it. So.
But how do you know you don't see him?
Because I'd have seen him.
Yeah, but how would you recognize them if she said they can trick you into thinking other things? Would you necessarily?
Well, no, not necessarily. If it clamored me, then I wouldn't remember.
Yeah. This gets a little tricky too, because unlike sort of that popular image, they're mostly, they're not tiny. They don't have wings. They don't have pointed ears. So it's entirely possible that you could run into, something that was another worldly being, that was a fairy, and not necessarily realize it.
Because could it look just like me?
Yeah, it could look very human.
So
usually when they're passing as human, there's a couple tells that you can kind of keep an eye out for.
Tell her. She's a brilliant psychic medium. She needs to know.
They tend to dress a little strangely by contemporary human standards, either like a generation or two out of date, or very colorful or very strange. I realize that's a very subjective kind of description.
Maybe I have met a bunch of fairies, but sorry.
Might have. They often tend to, in conversations, say things or seem to know things that they shouldn't have any awareness of.
Damn, I'm a fairy.
I was talking to someone who had a first-hand encounter, and they were actually doing laundry in like the basement of their apartment. And this guy came in who was dressed just a lot of bright colors, kind of odd, she thought. But she just thought, random human dude, basically. But he started talking to her about stuff that had been on her mind that, he really had no way to know, but not in a way that was directly like, I know your name and, that you're worried about your brother kind of way, but more just, talking to her about the themes that she'd been thinking about. Gave her some really great life advice and then disappeared, never saw him again. And that she thought it was a fairy encounter, and it kind of fits that description. So
could Kelly has to psychically connect with me here and help me say what I'm about to say here.
Okay, I gotcha.
All right, but some people think ghosts could be other dimensional beings. Is that what you're referring to as fairies? Like, could they be one and the same, or?
I think that human ghosts, and fairies are a separate thing.
Right, but some people think some ghosts are from a different dimension.
Yeah, I've heard people refer to fairies as extra-dimensional beings. Yeah. So that's certainly a way that people describe them today.
Because you keep saying outer-worldly. What do you keep saying?
Yep. Otherworldly.
Otherworldly, yeah. Is that what you mean? Like, what is...
That's a term you can use, sure. That's a way to describe it. The otherworld is, again, in folklore and stories and all that, is supposed to be a world that is very close to ours, but separated from it.
So a different dimension.
Which is like the parallel dimensions that people sometimes think with ghosts. So, yeah.
Sure. Because some people...
Yeah, so I can see where you're getting that connection.
I don't know. I'm just asking because I've heard people sternly say, what if it's not a dead person? It's just that person being alive in a different dimension. So it's kind of...
Well, and I mean, there are stories with fairies about them taking humans who are thought to be dead then in this world. Like it seems like the human has died, but actually they take them to go live in this other world. Like I said, the biggest difference is that when people have the fairy encounters, they're tangible, physical beings, as opposed to the way most people experience ghosts.
Yeah. So, a question from chat. Mama Pat says, what do you think about the Cottingley fairies? Real or hoax?
Oh, that's such a juicy topic. Right into the controversy.
Okay, well, hang on. For those of us who are not as red as my mom, what are the Cottingley fairies?
Oh, yeah. I'll give a recap.
Okay.
So, 100 years ago, these two girls, I'm not going to remember their names, so I apologize now to their spirits, wherever they are. But these two girls, I think they were like 8 and 10, had taken these pictures that supposedly showed each of the girls surrounded by these little fairies.
I know.
The little winged fairies. Yep, they're black and white photos. You can find them online. They're in the public domain now. They're
like
super
Tinkerbell
famous.
fairies?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks more like that.
Yeah, this was 100 years ago, sort of on the tail end of the Victorian era. It was really popular, especially in children's books, to depict fairies like that, to show fairies as these sort of almost childlike,
right,
small, like bird-sized figures with usually butterfly wings or insect wings. And these pictures caused a huge controversy when they came out. A lot of people said they were fake. A lot of people said they were real. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who is the author of all the Sherlock Holmes books, he is actually, or actually was actually, a big believer in those sorts of things. He publicly supported the girls and published some of the photos, kind of came out and said that, yes, these are authentic. He believed in them. So, of course, then that blew up a whole other layer. I mean, at the time this all happened, this was like big news. Like, it's quite a lot of drama.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, lots of time goes by. It's this open question. Is it real? Is it not real? And in 1983, the older of the girls had passed away at that point, if I remember correctly. The younger one came forward and basically admitted that they had faked the pictures. She said that one of them was genuine, that the first one was a genuine picture, but that the rest of them, they had cut out paper figures and propped them up. And keep in mind that the camera technology in,
was different,
was not nearly as cutting edge as what we have today. And this sort of stirred the whole thing up again, raised a lot of the questions again, just really brought everything back into the spotlight with it. There are still people today who do believe that one of the pictures is real. And there are people who think that because she admitted they had faked a lot of them, that obviously the whole thing is fake. My personal opinion on it is that I do think the girls genuinely saw some things, and that they couldn't get it on film, which is why they did what they did to kind of prove their experiences. But I do think they had some real experiences. I think there was something real going on that motivated all of it.
But
yeah,
this is
because the
why
pictures are too detailed.
Yeah. I'm not looking, so go ahead.
Yeah, it's it turned out that particularly the more famous one, which is the one girl sort of leaning forward on one fist with the little dancing fairy figures in front of her,
Mm-hmm.
those particular fairy figures were copied very closely from what was a popular book at the time, of like little paper cutout dolls. So,
After the older sister confessed, though, didn't she retract that confession?
She always insisted that one of the pictures was real, that the first picture had not been faked. And, you know, again, if I'm remembering correctly, the gist of it was the first one was real, but then they couldn't get more. And there was a lot of pressure so that they kind of made more. But yeah, she was always adamant, the younger one, if I remember correctly, that they were not all faked.
Mama Pat wants to know, didn't she retract?
That's what I just asked. Yeah.
Retract her confession.
Yeah. Sorry.
She may have before she died. Yeah.
Right.
That I honestly don't remember.
I thought you were asking about the other sister. Sorry, Kelly.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. Okay,
yeah,
so I'm going to go back to a question that...
complicated.
It is. This just proves don't fake anything in the paranormal and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, because, and honestly, that's the truth. If they did get one real picture, but then they faked a bunch of them, that real one has nothing to stand on anymore.
Yep.
It was a different time then, but it's a lesson learned for us now these days.
Definitely.
Right.
It's a sad reality that a lot of people feel that pressure that if they can't document that experience.
But if you fake something, it takes away from that one true.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to change topics just a little bit here from a question we had way back. And it's not, I don't know if it's completely disconnected, honestly, but what is your thoughts and opinions on changelings?
What is it changing?
From one controversy directly into another. So a changeling is a fairy that is left in place of a human who is stolen or taken by the fairies, is kind of the simplest definition of what a changeling is. And usually these days when you see people talking about changelings, they mostly talk about babies and young children. The actual folklore, though, covers a whole range. We see all kinds of stories with everything from infant to, new brides, new grooms on their wedding nights. New mothers were a big target if you had just given birth. It was not at all uncommon for you to get taken. They have a whole bunch of folk protection and folk magic stuff because of that, to try to prevent that from happening. And the idea is that the fairies would take the human, and then they would either leave an object behind that was glamoured, magicked, to look like the person they'd taken. And then within a few days that the fake person would die. Everyone would think the human had died. Fairies get away with taking the person. The other thing they would do is leave behind a fairy. Sometimes it would be a fairy baby, if it was a baby being taken who was kind of sickly, wasn't looking good, kind of swapping out the sick baby for a healthy baby. Sometimes it would be sort of an old fairy. That kind of varies depending on the story. The changeling folklore, it has a very dark angle to it. Historically, people really truly believed that these things would happen. And because of that, they would do these things, these folk practices, to try to force the changeling to leave so that the real human would be returned. So we have all kinds of stories sort of relating to that. The problem is that a lot of the stuff that they would do to kind of make the changeling leave was basically torture. And I realize you said this is an anything goes kind of podcast. I don't want to get too much into it.
No, we're explicit. You can swear. We're explicit.
Yeah, it's just very grim and very sad.
Sounds like an 80s movie, though.
Well,
yeah. The last case of the last confirmed case of someone who was murdered as a changeling in Ireland was in 1895, I believe.
I think your standards were a little different than ours today, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, well, that was Bridget Clary. She was a young woman. I believe she was in her 20s. And her husband started to believe that she was a changeling, that his real wife had been taken,
right,
and this fairy had been left behind. These days, most scholars kind of think that she probably had pneumonia and she'd gotten very ill. And
because wasn't she running like a really high fever and was delirious or something?
She was. And they had gotten an actual doctor, but her husband had also gotten sort of the local wise man to come out. And he had prescribed these herbs and this stuff that she was supposed to eat and drink. And her husband was supposed to ask her multiple times who she really was. And, not surprisingly, eventually she got kind of tired of it and sort of wasn't willing to go along with it. And he did end up killing her. He actually burned her alive in her house.
What?
This is one of the stories I actually know.
Yep.
So how do we go from a confirmed case to him killing her?
Because that
caught me off guard.
He was trying to prove that she was a changeling.
Yeah.
I was waiting for her to kill him.
No, he genuinely believed that she was not his wife. She was, of course, but he genuinely believed that she wasn't. And a common practice with changelings to get them to show themselves or admit their fairies and return the real human was to hold them over fire or to have them sit on heated iron, shovels often. I said it's torture. I mean, it literally was torture. And so he, and I believe it was her father, it might have been her brother, or someone in her family, held her over the fire in their house, and she did die from that. He went to jail for murder.
You said middle 1800s, right?
1895.
All right, so late. But they didn't understand mental illness. They didn't understand delirium from fever. They didn't understand any of this. So it'd be like if they killed her during an exorcism. They didn't know.
That's effectively what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of records of infants and children who were killed this way.
Well, and I mean, the story that I always heard about changelings before I started learning more about it is, I mean, if a parent assumed that their child had been switched out, they would take them into the forest and leave them and basically hope that the fairies would bring back their real baby. And a lot of babies died that way.
Yep. Yeah. They would, many also drowned. They would put them in rivers with the same premise. The idea was that if this was really a fairy, obviously the fairy family wouldn't want that fairy to be abused or hurt, so they would come take it back. And with the way fairy etiquette works, they would have to return the human that they'd taken. And of course, what normally really happened was that the person or the child died.
So how much of this in the early history do you think has to do with more of not knowing mental health, not knowing the brain, not knowing how humans worked?
It's hard to say.
I know it's putting you on the spot, but...
Well, I mean, there have been medical professionals of various sorts for a really long time. Like I said, with Bridget Clary, they did have an actual doctor come in and see her who was also treating her. It was just that folk belief kind of crept in.
It's the same theory as a doctor who came in to look for a witch's mark. And if you had a witch's mark, then they test you to see if you were a witch. If they put you underwater and you drowned, guess what? You weren't a witch. You know?
I mean, as sad as it is, I honestly think that there's just something in human nature sometimes that it's like a switch that gets flipped and we can do this. You still see this stuff today. Not specifically with the changeling stuff so much, but there are accounts in the 21st century of children who die during exorcisms, for example.
Oh yeah, that's
and it's very similar idea of deciding that this child is not really your child in some sense because
but
they're
I
not
think if we
behaving
don't
properly.
talk about this, all of this, the changelings, the fairies, the exorcism, the ghosts, then the wrong information is out there and more people will die.
I agree.
So I think it's an important subject. Like, no matter what you believe, it's an important subject.
So
Yeah, it's definitely something that we need to be really aware of how dangerous it is to sort of dehumanize or inhumanize someone just because they're different in some way.
So the question has kind of been breached in chat, but just to kind of bring it back up. So you mentioned that fairies are immortal, but yet we've talked about fairy babies. So does that mean that they can die, but they have to have something happen to die? And where do the fairy babies come from?
He wants to know how do they make more babies?
Where do fairy babies come from? How are they made?
They make more babies the exact same way we make more babies. It's this is like the most common question I get asked. Believe it or not, it's probably actually not that surprising.
They do the bow chicka wow wow?
They do.
Yeah.
Does that mean there's fairy porn out there somewhere?
I'm sure there's fairy porn.
If not, there will be now, because the people that listen to our show are the people that would make it.
There's an internet rule about that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
To both of your questions, yes, very, very good observation. When we say that they're immortal, what we really mean is that generally in folklore, they don't die from old age. So when we see accounts of fairies dying or being killed, it's them being killed. Like something happens to them.
To their little physical body that...
Yeah.
I thought immortal meant they couldn't die.
Well, in this sense, it means that they
or just
would
like Twilight
live
means
forever.
They can be killed, but they'll live forever otherwise.
Yeah, they'll live forever unless something changes that.
All right. Sorry.
I'm
sorry.
So we do see no, it's a good point. We do see accounts of them being pretty much immortal, being very ancient. But we also see accounts of them, being physically killed. And there's a ton of folklore relating to them wanting babies, needing babies, making babies. They actually
does the female carry the baby the same way?
Yep. And there's a lot of folklore. I'm trying to say this like in the most.
You don't. People have talked about butt plugs and vibrators on the show, so.
I'm sure there's that for fairies too.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. It's explicit.
Fairy fetishes.
That is 100% definitely a thing.
Ooh, now we have a topic.
Yeah.
Everything's taken a left-hand turn.
Join us for part 2 of Fairy Fetishes.
No.
So that was such a popular show, though. You have no idea.
You'd make millions. Your next book.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Pictures and all. No, sorry. I'll behave.
There's actually a book.
God.
It's from Iceland. The author's Icelandic. And I'm not making up this title. It's called Please Yourself, with the E in self capitalized for elf. And it does include stick figure illustrations. And I highly recommend it to everyone because it's ridiculous and fabulous.
Oh my God, that's great.
It's a woman in Iceland who
So just call me that and add wings.
She's had encounters with they're called Alfar in Iceland, but the elves of Iceland, and encounters of the sort that we're talking about now. Stick figure.
There you go, Darren. That will answer all your questions. Just read up on the elves having sex and picture them in wings, and that's the fairies.
There you go.
She's trying to be so polite, but having fun. I like you.
Yeah. Historically, there's a reason that fairies and elves were equated to incubi in particular.
Because they're horny little bastards, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And there's...
Do they force themselves just like Incubus?
Do they what now?
What?
Incubus. They force themselves. The sex demons.
No,
rape people. Oh.
No, it's more seduction.
Yeah. All right.
But do they
do the mind trick?
Ability to speak. I mean, quite possibly they would, but the reputation that they had in folklore was more
like
that the
Edwin
would be
Cullen.
very voluntarily.
Oh, he's so cute. I'll do him.
Yeah, your problem would be that afterwards the fairy would take off.
Do you notice how sad this is? All my references are to Twilight. Can you tell I have teenage girls?
It could be worse.
Yeah.
So that begs the question then. So if fairies can reproduce and fairies can do it with a human, can you have a halfling?
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God.
So the idea is, and again,
Sorry.
this is across folklore, that fairies themselves have a very low fertility rate. They don't tend to have many children.
So the males have to reproduce with a female human?
Well, and the other way around. And, female fairies will hook up with male humans as well. Again, this is
both ways. All right.
Folklore. Yeah.
I get you. So I was thinking, I'm not going to say what I was thinking, but I get you now.
But wouldn't that make them a half-blood and not as powerful?
The way it seems to work when it comes to fairies, because they can also take someone who's fully human into their world, into their reality, their dimension, whatever you want to call it, and sort of transmute the person, transform the person, make that person into a fairy. So the idea seems to be that they have the ability to shift or change that person fully into one of their own.
So they look human but have full fairy powers, kind of.
Yes. And we actually, we're talking about this really broadly.
Very broadly,
different types. Makes a little difference which exact ones we're talking about. Like Selkies, for example, which are seal people. They look like seals in the water. They can come on land, remove the seal skin, and they look very human.
I love
you would
seals.
never know they were.
I would lose my shit if something climbed out of the ocean, peeled off its skin, and then said, "Let's go have sex."
I don't love seals that much.
No.
There are people that do. So, in the folklore with Selkies, half of it is a male human finds a female Selkie. If you take the seal skin, she can't go back to the water. So we have all these stories about the human would take the seal skin and then she has to marry him and be his wife. And they would produce however many children. And she would eventually, or usually one of the children would find the seal skin and give it back to her. And she immediately returns to the ocean, leaves the children, goes back to the water. And these children then would live as humans and among, humans. But they have that connection to the Selkies and to the water and to the ocean. And then we see the same with male Selkies would take, human women. Usually if you're, the way the folklore says, if you're a human woman and you're heartbroken and you go to the shore and cry 7 tears into the waves, this Selkie would appear. And you can sort of either choose to just have a good time or choose to go with him.
So
there's
like
accounts.
One night stand or commit.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. I know I make light of things, but I'm not. It's just my way of...
Yep, the Selkie lore I bring up in particular because in certain places, like the Orkney Isles, they say that even if it's a little further back in your ancestry, when children are born with like webbed fingers or webbed toes, or there's another condition where they have sort of an extra thick skin in certain places, that's a sign that you have Selkie ancestry. So there's definitely so much folklore relating to this.
So we have asked you, that kind of goes on to the...
Everyone's favorite topic.
Sorry, yeah, Mama Pat just posted in there. She's like, yes, Aquaman. But then it disappeared.
I was thinking that too. Mermaids, and then it went to Aquaman, then it went to Jason.
She
whatever.
just was on Jason Momoa. That was all that was on her brain.
Yep.
Shape of Water. If you've seen that movie.
Yeah. So we've asked a million questions, and it's already been an hour. But I guess I kind of want to give you an opportunity. We can ask all the questions that we know, us and the people listening and everything, with our little itty-bitty amounts of knowledge we have. If we could say, tell us anything that you feel is important for us to know about Irish folklore and fairies, what would be like the top couple things you'd want to tell us?
That's such a rough segue from what we were just talking about.
About fairy sex? Come on now.
Like, well, that was super fun. Now let me be boring.
Oh, it's not boring.
We don't allow guests to be boring on here, so.
I think we have hit really the highlights, which is that fairies are not little Tinkerbells.
Yeah. I think there needs to be a part 2.
Well, I was going to say she could have moved on to like fairy prostitutes. Could have been our next thing. So, you know.
But that would have taken us another whole hour. Because then it would have been like, how much do they make? How much do you tip them? And
I feel like we could have done a whole show just on this topic.
Yes. So, no, but we barely touched the Irish folklore part of it.
That's true.
This is all on fairies.
Yeah, there's so much to all of this, which is what I said at the beginning, that it's one of those things, the more you get into it, you know, every question, there's 3 more questions, and every time you learn one thing, there's like all these other things that come up. You know, it's just, this is why I'll be studying this until the day I die.
But I think people that say they have the absolute answer to anything paranormal or supernatural, it's like, it's paranormal for a reason. We can't prove it, so how do you have the absolute answer? Yeah.
Well, and you know, on this subject, so much of it really comes down to anecdotal accounts. Even the folklore is really just old anecdotal accounts. It's people's encounters and experiences that have been passed on. And then you have the modern ones, of course. And those are always going to be unique to that person. You know, you can have one story of someone who encountered a particular kind of being and it went terribly badly. And then someone else can encounter that same sort of being and it goes
same thing with the ghost, though. It's the same thing. So next time you're on, I'm gonna question you about the paranormal. I mean, the prostitute prices, the fairy prostitute prices.
I feel like I should come back and we should just do Fairies After Dark.
Yeah,
right. X-rated fairy.
Right.
X-rated fairy.
I'm sure there's things worth to talk about with that.
Right.
To recap what we covered here. Fairies are not always cute little Tinkerbell things sprinkling pixie dust. They're not always nice. Darren should not try to catch one.
No.
Darren
should not have sex with one.
Always be on guard because you may be sleeping with one.
Yes.
Or at least talking to one.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know. Part 2, Darren.
Now I'm wondering if fairies have Tinder. That this is completely your fault.
Right?
Oh my God, fairy dating.
And can fairies hear us? Like, am I going to be assaulted? Like, am I going to be hit upside the head for making fun of fairies?
Well, they can definitely hear us if they happen to be around, but I don't think they would be annoyed with it. This is a fairly
I know what you were thinking.
I am making up show names. Fascinating fairy fornication.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go. I've got show names going through my head.
All right, one more question, because we've been on for over an hour. But fairies are male and female, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Yep. Fairies cover the whole range, male, female, overtly sexual, androgynous.
I thought so. We just didn't quite say that. We said they could reproduce, but we didn't say whether
Yep. I would say that, you know, actually, I wrote a whole entire peer-reviewed paper about this, actually, but they cover that whole spectrum of what we would consider gender, sexuality, all of that. They probably have whole aspects of that we don't even understand.
I don't understand what we do have here on Earth in humans, so.
That's fair.
And, you know. Kelly looks confused or amused.
Just, my brain is is spitting.
I know. I'm gonna make I'm gonna have you back. I'm gonna write a list of questions. They might all. If she had fun tonight, she will be back, people. If not, I don't
think
blame
Fairies
her.
After Dark needs to.
This was fun.
Yeah.
This was fun.
And fairies are not the only Irish folklore stuff that's out there. So people may brush the surface.
We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, we really just talked about fairies the whole time.
Yeah, but it's an interesting subject. That's why. So
it is, and like I said, there's so much to it.
Yeah.
It's not the sort of thing that's easy to have a short conversation about.
Yeah.
But yeah, Irish folklore, whole other topic, lots of stuff going on there too.
Yeah. So next time we'll get more into it. Can't promise we'll be any more serious because I'm me and I like to have fun. We get the point across.
We would, but we don't like to lie.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a liar. So, where can people find you on social media, and where can people find your goddamn 35 books?
35 books.
I like to keep busy.
That's why you have 3 babies.
That's true.
I had 5, so I get you.
I'll see you. Busier than me.
Yep. I didn't write 35 books. If I wrote 35 books, I'd only have 3 kids.
I'm probably lucky I wrote the books then, because I definitely can't handle more than 3.
Oh. You don't notice. After 3, you don't notice the other 2.
That's what I've heard. Let me see. You can find my books on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, brick and mortar stores. If you request them, they can usually order them. So they're pretty out there, pretty accessible. Where can you find me? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm everywhere, sadly.
Just all under your name? Or?
Yeah. I made what turns out to have been a brilliant decision in retrospect, but was pure laziness, let me assure you. Early on to just do everything under my full name, Morgan Daimler, so that I could remember it.
Yeah.
Yes. But
I get that. I do.
Me too. I did that too.
Yeah. Everyone else I know has all these cool handles and whatnot for everything they're on. Yeah. I'm just no.
Paranormal Buzz Radio is almost the same on everything. My personal ones aren't, and that's just because they weren't taken. I mean, they were taken.
Yeah, the only thing I am on Tumblr, and that's under a different name, but that's because I got on Tumblr as a joke, and it wasn't supposed to be serious. And then I started just posting serious bits of
Is that what that fairy porn is?
That, I should put that on Tumblr. Oh, it fit in really well.
That would make me... I'm on Tumblr. I share all Paranormal Buzz Radio stuff to Tumblr, but I've never looked at Tumblr. That would make me look at Tumblr.
I'm sure if you search that, you would find it on Tumblr, because Tumblr has everything.
We had one more question in chat. Yeah. Whereabouts in the country do you live?
I live in the Northeast. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're one of those people who live way far away. Sorry.
Hey, I'm in the East.
I know.
I'm Northeast, kind of.
That's why I said one of those people.
I'm doing the never eat shredded wheat thing again. I think I'm in the Northeast.
Yes, you're in the Northeast, honey.
Yep.
Yeah, she never heard of that before, did you? You're from the Northeast. Did you ever hear of that? Never eat shredded wheat on a map to figure out
what the Northeast is?
I learned it in 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade of when you're learning maps.
With your direction.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm from Maine originally, so.
Oh, see.
Maine is a strange land.
I live in New Hampshire.
Oh, okay.
I'm born and raised in Massachusetts, but I live in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And the tri-state area is very weird.
Yes, it is.
If include Maine, I think Maine would be the fourth. How do you say that? Because it's not part of the tri-state area, but it's the 4th one, right?
Quadri-state area.
There you go. Thank you. See, that's why you were. See, she's smart.
Now, Maine is its own weird little. Well, it's not little, but.
But I love Maine people because they're.
Oh yeah.
Do you ever travel and attend expos and give presentations?
Yeah, I mean, not during, COVID times because nobody does anything right now.
Nobody does anything. No.
Yeah, no, I've taught in Iceland, I've taught in Ireland, I've been as far as California in the U.S., and a few spots between. So I get around when there's no plague.
Yeah, damn plague.
Yeah, it has to go away eventually.
That's what I keep telling myself.
Then I'll be wandering around again.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, excellent show. Thank you so much. This has been fun.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, this was a blast. I really enjoyed it.
No, I'll definitely have to have you come back since we only talked about fairy porn.
You say it like it's a bad thing.
No, I'm impressed that you kept up with us.
Yeah, she just rolled right with it. As we rolled right into fairy porn, she was right there with us.
She encouraged us. Let's be honest.
I didn't discourage you.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Do either one of you guys have anything else to say before we go? Because we're over time.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. I had a great time. You guys are awesome.
No, thank you. And we'll definitely have you back. Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Join us next Friday. We will have either a surprise guest or me and Kelly. We're not really sure yet because
schedule stuff, Well,
because I was thinking of quitting. No. No, I'm kidding. But
I drove you out of business, did I?
Yeah, no. You brought me back. You brought me back. Now now February's on just because of Morgan. She was so great. No, seriously. We will be back next week. We hope you have a great weekend. Thank you so much for listening live. Thank you so much for listening later. Don't forget to punch that like button. Make sure you know how much we appreciate you and show us that you appreciate us and that you love the beautiful Kelly McCarville by hitting that like button.
Please. Now people are going to go out there and unlike the show, Shay. Come on.
No, I'm prostituting you out.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right, guys. Seriously, have a great weekend. Thank you. Morgan, thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.